Hey guys, welcome to the Unshakable Man. My name's Chris Wilson. I am the founder of the Unshakable Man. I'm joined here today with Dr. Chris Spromberg and Mike Messersmith. I will give them a second to introduce themselves here in just a minute. If you're listening to the audio for this, or if you're watching this later, our intention today is to have a real conversation about the Unshakable Man men's retreats, because we get a lot of men reaching out. We've had over 700 men reach out and say that they are interested in attending one of these retreats. And I host men's retreat info sessions for 30 minutes. These are just free talks with me to really to get to know men and to answer their questions so they can feel comfortable enough to get uncomfortable to attend one of these retreats. And I get a lot of the same questions over and over again. And I know that there's a lot of guys out there that maybe haven't set up a call. So my intention here is really to have like a normal conversation and to answer these 10 questions, but also to kind of like give you guys a felt sense of what I'm like, who Mike Messersmith is. He's been a man that's attended the retreats, Dr. Spromberg, and to inspire you guys to really to show up and to make the space in your life to do this. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce Dr. Chris Spromberg, and feel free, Chris, let the guys know like where in the world you are, something about yourself and the retreats, and I'll be quiet now.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Chris Bromberg. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist. So I went on and got my doctorate degree in psychology with a focus in diagnosis, counseling, and treatment. And so I work here in Southwest Montana, right along the Yellowstone River. The hospital, I work out of a hospital that is 300 yards from the Yellowstone River. And so I get to do all the fun things that involve Montana, but professionally, I work out of a hospital setting where I get to see and treat all sorts of people. And I've been doing this for actually almost a decade in total, and been out of grad school a handful of years now at this point. So, wow. Part of kind of how we got connected is I've always been passionate about helping guys and just be better and men and in relationships and just better in general, and got connected with Chris Wilson and the Unshakable Man in 2020, was it? I think.
Yeah. It's like three and a half years ago. It's wild.
Pandemic, and we connected online and shared a passion. I did my doctoral thesis on masculinity and shame, and so Wilson connected with me and saw my passion, and we just had a few phone calls where we connected and been a part of the community since. It's been great.
It's awesome, man. And I would love to just add, we coming out of the pandemic, we did our first retreat in Montana together. And now what are we at? Is this the fifth one since that? Fourth one. Yeah, this is the fourth retreat that's coming up here. And this is going to be a consistent part. I mean, at this stage, it's definitely going to be an ongoing thing to be putting these retreats on every year. So really looking forward to that, Chris. And dude, it's been awesome to get to go through this experience with you.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks, man.
Hey, Mike, on to you, man.
All right. Thanks, Chris. Hey, everybody. I'm Mike Messersmith. I am one of the stewards in the Unshakable Man community. There are three of us. I've been part of the Unshakable Man community for about 2 years now. Came to the community through one-on-one coaching with Chris Wilson. Absolutely phenomenal experience there. It's been transformational in my life. And, with that, I guess I should say I'm coming to you from really, really hot Texas. I think it's like 102 degrees right now. So, for those of you out there in lands where it's not so hot, I'm jealous. Yeah, exactly. Chris Wilson, Mr. San Francisco, high of probably 65 today.
So it is like in the it's like 75 today, and it's hot. So I've got my Unshakable Man tank top on.
Yeah, Chris is wearing a tank top because it's so hot out there in San Francisco. Yeah. So just real quick, I went to the retreat in California back in, I believe it was April. We went to the retreat, and I will tell you that that is as much as the one-on-one coaching with Chris Wilson has impacted my life. That retreat was also a extremely transformational experience for me. So I'm excited for those that are going to go to this retreat to experience that, and here to share any kind of words of wisdom from that retreat that I can.
Thanks, dude. Thank you so much, Mike. It's been awesome to just get to do this work with you, man.
Yeah,
been awesome.
likewise.
All right, guys. Well, we've got the 10 questions here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to list out these 10 questions, and I'd like to make this as, I'd like to try to hit each of these questions together, but at the same time, if stuff comes up that we think is more meaningful or really brings some color to this, please take up space, interrupt, make sure that your point is added. We want to try to condense this in here to 30 minutes, right?
Great.
Especially for the guys who are listening. So the 10 questions are: why do men attend these retreats? How much does it cost? How will the retreat help me grow, heal, or be more confident in my life? Are they religious or spiritual, and in what way is this the case? Do I need previous experience in this work? What kind of things do you do at the retreat? And what happens afterward? Number 8, 9, and 10 are: what are the accommodations like? How old are the guys who attend? And will I be accepted by the guys? That last question there, will I be accepted by the guys? I have been really surprised how many guys ask that question. I know it's number 10 on the list, but I would say more than half of the men that I talk with from various backgrounds and spectrums of society and life, that's really, I think, why guys do these calls, is because it's a very natural thing to feel like it's a really big deal to get in your car and to buy a plane ticket and to fly to a retreat, to be with a group of guys for a weekend, for 4 days without ever knowing them. And that's probably the biggest question. It's really amazing. But why don't we just jump in with why do men attend these retreats?
Mike, I'm curious for you, what brought you to your first retreat?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, and it was my first retreat ever.
Really?
Yeah, and I'd been looking for, I've been looking for opportunities and ways to get out there and do some work, some self work, Chris talked about this retreat, and I was like, I'm in, brother. And I went out there, and again, as I said in my introduction, it was transformational. It really was. And I'm gonna jump to question 10 just real quick, because I want to say that we had 24 men in the retreat that I attended, and it was a cross section of men. There were men of every creed, religion, sexual orientation, all of that.
Thank you for saying that, Mike, because I do have a story in my head right now of the three of us are a group of white guys.
Yeah.
And I think that is one of the main things that I just really want to make sure that guys know, that this is an inclusive community for anyone who identifies, been socialized as male. You're a man, you want to be more confident in your life or relationships. This place is inclusive. So thank you for saying that.
Yeah, you bet. It was like I said, it was a great experience from that perspective, because each man brings something different to the table, to the experience. And so being able to interact with those men and being able to share those experiences, and sometimes vastly different experiences and sometimes very similar experiences, And so I think that was one of the most phenomenal things about the retreat.
Thanks, Mike. I'll jump right in. Like, why did I attend my first retreat? I'll be honest, it's because I got invited and I was scared shitless. When I didn't even know what a men's retreat was. I'd never heard of a men's retreat. I thought it was weird to, like, I felt like I needed to tell the guy that invited me that I wasn't gay. Like it, and that really made me realize, like, this is something I want to do, to see what that experience is like. But that first retreat that I went to was no way near the level of container and held space and depth and meaning and intensity and utility that I think Chris and I and Mike, that this community that we're putting together now. But it really inspired me leaving that retreat to do this work. Like I left that retreat being like, this is what the world needs. I don't know how to do it, but 10 years ago, like, I'm going to learn how. And it was really cool, Chris, to hear that you left school 10 years ago, because I feel like we were both kind of doing that. We were on that thread, right? And it's been 10 years. So
Yeah. What was the term you used? Invited and scared shitless.
yeah.
Was my experience as well in my first retreat that I attended, my men's retreat. Actually, a friend from church who I knew invited me to this retreat, not just like a churchy men's retreat, but like a depth work retreat. And that's how I think a lot of people come to this at some level, that they realize, and this was my experience, that, hey, these ways of kind of getting through the world aren't working right now. Either that's evident in my relationships or my stress level or my depression. And here's another man who invited me to do something different. And scared shitless was the experience. I had, I think, a 2-hour drive to where my own was, and the just dry sweating the whole time, right? Or cold sweating the whole time, all the way up to driving up that gravel road and up to that front gate, just scared shitless. But knowing I needed to do something different in my life.
I really like how you talk about the gravel road, because the drive into the retreat every time is really special, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think maybe I can talk about that for number 3. But guys, I'm loving the pace here. So let's just remove this 30-minute time limit, because I'm really enjoying how we're moving through this. But let's try to just keep the momentum going, keeping in mind the guys who are listening, right? So how much does it cost? I'm just going to be very straightforward here. It's $1,500 to attend the retreat. It includes your room, your food, amazing accommodations, and we offer a payment plan and sliding scale options if you request it. I just want you to know that this is it's a small business that's in service of men, the good for everyone and everything. And if you want to be there, right? If this is something that you want to do, and you honestly do not have the funds to be able to attend this type of retreat, but you have the willingness and the willpower and the motivation to get yourself there, just call us, right? Like Chris and I will meet, we'll talk about it, and we'll see what we can do to get you there. But also, in the world of retreats and this type of work, my intention is to provide a world-class experience, and $1,500 in that world is not a lot of money. It's not the high price. You guys have anything else you need to say about that?
It's a strong value of mine that the weekend is intentional in that it's worth your value. So it's not just free time that we're charging for, that there is strong intention in everything we're doing to add to that value. And also a strong value of mine. If you want to be there, we'll make it work.
Awesome.
And one of my things is always an equal exchange of energy. And so from my perspective, being a participant, the $1,500, I feel like I got the best deal in the world. Absolutely, positively. So
Awesome. Okay. Number 3, how will the retreat help me grow, heal, and be more confident? I can take this one and then jump around.
Yeah.
I think what I heard from the two of you guys is being scared shitless. And I often think about my time in software sales before, in the lifetime before this, or being in public speaking classes that I took for myself, that the number one fear that people have is being seen, being on stage. And if a man is listening to this and you're feeling that like anticipation, that aliveness in your body, that's like, oh shit, like, oh, like, I don't know, right? Like, to me, just imagine all of the guys that show up at this, that they're all breaking through that. And when we do that and we co-create that space, it really truly gives me the opportunity to see myself in a new way through the image or the way that other men that show up at the retreat, how they show up. And it has been the most meaningful, awe-inspiring work of my life. And also for myself personally, right? Like, because I question every retreat, why, like, I'm hosting the retreat, but I'm also in it, right? And it helps me see myself in this new way. And that, I think that we can connect that in later with the what happens after question 7, but pass it on to whoever wants to say anything.
I just like to one experience that I had during the retreat that I think kind of answers this question is I was sharing with the group a sense of appreciation, and I got really choked up about that. And being held by 23 other men to allow me to have that emotional experience, that is the kind of growth that you just can't get anywhere else. So, for me, that was like one of the big growth moments for me in that retreat. There were many, many others, but I just wanted to share that one.
Thanks,
I
Mike.
am paying attention. I just want to let you know I'm looking down on my phone because we have Londell who might be joining us here in a moment. I've been waiting for his text. Thanks for sharing that, Mike.
Yeah.
Hey, but
I always come from and Wilson, you've heard me say this probably umpteen dozen times, that I really kind of believe that we all have things that we fall back to that keep us safe, whether that's, like Chris said, not being seen and vulnerable, kind of protecting ourselves. However, those also really limit our experiences from feeling confident and feeling like we can grow. And so we really have been intentional in creating a weekend that provides lots of experiences in very experiential ways to move past those things, to try something different with support and encouragement. But it's always really kind of scary to do the opposite of what's been safe. But out of that, our hope is to support people and to allow that space to be brave so that you can try those new things and be supported, like Mike was sharing. I think out of that, then we find those ways to heal and move, try new things and be more confident.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah. I do want to jump in with what you just said about that this really is training, right? Like there's just such a spectrum of why guys attend these retreats, right? Like guys attend these retreats because their life is forcing them to be here, from a divorce, from anxiety, from addiction, from depression, from being in the lowest of the low, the loneliest of the lonely, that dark night of the soul, different periods in your life, right? From in your 20s to your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, your 60s, your 70s, and even your 80s. Guys have shown up at this. But I think the thing that is so incredible to me is that on the other side of that, there's also coming, because I'm actually getting training, right? I'm physically entering this space, this brave space. It's not safe. We learn how to reinstate safety in the group. And the men like Mike Messersmith, like Londell, who might be able to join us here in a little bit, like those guys, like there's guys like Ben, who couldn't be here today, who's come to 3 of these retreats. You're really growing, right? Because it's a forcing function in your life to really test yourself and to learn new skills, to be more confident. Yeah. Right. And especially that's how I feel from my perspective as the facilitator. It's just, I'm growing.
Yeah. Chris, that even reminds me too, like we've had guys at our retreats who, for all intents and purposes, are doing really well. Maybe they're not in a crisis in their life, but wanting to continue that depth, wanting to continue their own growth. And grow deeper and better connected with themselves and others around them too.
Yeah. And I think that that's a sign of our community and the container and the energy that we're putting out into the world. I've definitely seen an evolution in you, Chris, like your own growth and development in this work. And I think you and I and Mike and the men who are creating that space, we are all in. I'm going to speak for myself. I'm in a very good place in my life right now. And it's because of this work. And also, when I started out in this work, I wasn't, right? I was coming to this work and it has an energy to it. Hey, Londell, welcome in, man. It's good to have you here. Feel free to give yourself an opportunity to just arrive here. If you want to introduce yourself and say hello, you're more than welcome, but I don't want to put you on the spot right away. We just kind of introduced ourselves and gave our background of how we came in on the retreats, and we're answering these 10 questions that are in the chat. I can send them in there so you can see them. How you doing, man?
I'm doing okay now. So yeah, I'm good. It's a good day.
Your frustration from what you were having to deal with before is welcome here. Feel free to mention it or clear it if you need that, but thanks for being here, man.
Of course.
Awesome. Let's jump in and give Londell, give you an opportunity to sink in. We are on question number 4. Are the retreats religious or spiritual, and in what way? Chris, do you want to give this one the first?
Yeah. Our intent is to really be open to anyone's experience and background coming in. I have a history in growing up in kind of the Christian church. However, my intent is to hold my experience and let that be my experience so other guys can have their experience. So whether you come from a strong religious background, we're open to all those verbiages, and some guys may connect more with that, or a not religious background at all. It's really an open space for all kind of beliefs and faiths to be present. We do acknowledge like kind of there's sometimes something bigger than us, and whether that's earth or connecting just soul to soul and person to person. So we'll use kind of spiritual understandings of something bigger, but it's not in any sort of kind of religious faith-based context.
Thanks, man. Really, really appreciate that answer. You mind if I jump in?
Go for it.
Yeah, for me, this work really, this work is spiritual, and the work that we are doing here, but in the context of, just like you said, Chris, like any and all belief systems are welcome here. But the fundamental underlying structure of the work that we're doing at the Unshakable Man is rooted in what I would call somatic self-leadership training. So what we're doing is teaching guys tools and skills to slow down and to get out of our heads, our egoic patterns and challenges, and to get into our bodies. And when we do that, when we learn how to do that in physical relationship with the space around us, the earth, the ground, the environment, other men, other human beings, there is this connection to self and other, right? And that's where men are really, I feel like we are really doing the work of dropping beneath those religious containers that hold that on the outside, and really giving guys the opportunity to connect with their own sense of what that is for them, right? And it's incredible work to be a part of. It's co-created. It's not a belief system. It's not a religious container, but all of that is welcome here. And if you want to look more into this, I would look up somatic spirituality, right? There's a lot of books and research on the nervous system that I could inspire you to go take a look at. Mike or Londell, do you guys want to add your piece in on that one? Number 4, are these religious or spiritual, and in what way from your own perspective?
From my own perspective, I don't think I can say it any better than you guys just said it. I had many spiritual experiences while I was at the retreat.
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't come from Unshakable Man teachings. It was my own personal experience. So so well said by both of you.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. Well, Londell, I know that I'm going to call you up or out that I know you have a deep spiritual practice of your own and teachings. Is there anything you want to say about your relationship with the work and having been a part of the community for the past 3 years?
Yeah. So I echo everything that's been said. And for me, getting to know and understand and address what my body is saying and feeling has only deepened my ability to be within my spiritual practice. I don't, at the retreat, I did not experience anyone asking me to do anything that was religious or spiritual related. And to Mike's very good point, related to the activities that happened and how I was touched by the processes, I went inward. I was called inward to listen and talk to my spirit. And so, there was an opportunity to go sit outside in the sun, and I laid out in the sun and, enjoyed that and just communed with nature. And in the nighttime, I stepped out to appreciate the moon and the stars, and that's how I'm connected to them. And so the spiritual journey is my own and not facilitated by anyone or anything within the Unshakable Man. And if an individual does have any sort of religious or spiritual traditions or practices, I think those will come up for that individual. And I believe that the facilitators can help address those questions, but I think really those questions or how that's showing up for the individual is really for the individual to discern and how it's related to their own spirituality.
Thanks, dude.
You're welcome.
I think that's a great point of just like our hope is to create a space and a container for every man to have his own experience for the weekend. And whatever that means for spirituality or religion and faith beliefs, or just whatever they need to get out of the weekend. I really do believe after having facilitated for these retreats now that we've created a container for no matter what you're bringing in, that it can be present.
And Chris, like when you say that, the amazing duality of that, for me, right? Because when I listen to Londell and Mike and you talk about that, I'm like, wait a second, like this really truly is a deep spiritual practice for me, but it's almost the ability to learn how to create and hold this container and to allow a man to have his own experience is what allows men of different belief systems to be in each other's presence. And that is it. That is the, like, without doing it, right? Without saying or dictating it. And it's just this beautiful artistic dance. And I feel very honored to be able to be a part of this, right? To be able to, this is for me, that internal thing that allows this to keep going, even when it's hard, right? It's what brings me here right now to be with you guys. And it's very special. So thank you.
Chris, do you feel like you need like previous experiences kind of doing this work to join one of the retreats?
What's that?
Hitting question 5. Do you feel like it's helpful to have previous experience? See what I did there? Transition.
Yeah, thank you for taking over. Yes, no, I think that's the other thing about clearing this space. You do not need to have past experience to be in this retreat. Although the demographics and the men that we attract has been a pretty awesome spread from being a part of men's work specifically to having a deep spiritual practice and let's say meditation or a Buddhist practice or yoga or something like that, or Christian faith. We're really bringing all of those guys together to have this, to co-create this container. And so the answer is no. And yes, you are welcome here with as much experience as you have.
We've had guys at all of our retreats come with absolutely zero previous kind of even self-work experience, whether that's a spiritual practice, their own therapy, or previous retreats. We've had men join each one of our retreats with absolutely zero experience. And our hope is to welcome them into this experience too, with lots of support as well.
Awesome. Number 6, what kind of things do you do at the retreat? So for this, maybe we just, I'd like to keep, maybe if we just share like what is something that, like, one of the practices or one of the things that we do at the retreat that really brings a lot of life or a lot of growth for you specifically. Maybe we share or answer that question from that perspective. So what kind of things do you do at the retreat?
I don't want to say anything because I don't want to spoil any of the experiences by sharing those experiences. So what I will say, what do? You grow, you transform, and you do this through many different types of practices that, Chris and Chris facilitate throughout the weekend. But in addition, you, like what Londell said earlier, you commune with nature if that's something that you want to do, because it's a great place to, it's a very, very cool spot with water, with, a lake and with trails and the California, excuse me, kind of California coastal foothills type environments. It's gorgeous. I did some walking while I was there and just some self work and self healing outside of the container, the individual containers that were built during the weekend, the overarching container. So again, that's just me, because I had no idea what I was going to experience when I was there. And I was just open to experiencing, and it was phenomenal. And I think not knowing what those practices were going to be, what the sessions were going to be, I think that just strengthened my experience in it.
Thank you, Mike.
I can be a little more specific, but I also agree that I don't want to say anything because I don't, yeah, I don't want to say anything. So what I will say is learning to let go of anger and express anger in ways that I have never before has helped me tremendously. So that's all I'll say about that.
Good one.
I'll jump
Planting
in.
a little seed of anticipation. Awesome. Chris, go for it.
The words that I just jotted them down so I wouldn't lose them. The words that come to my mind when we talk about what the weekend entails is intentionality. That like Chris Wilson and I have spent hours going over minute by minute of our time and schedule for the weekend with intentionality, that even our free time is intentionally placed. And even our meal times have intentionality around them. As we want everything to be a potential experience for growth. Whether that's walking to and from lunch or the next activity, or even just having some intentional downtime to decompress and connect with other men. So much of it has been intentional in ways to kind of deepen the experience. And so that's the other word that I really comes to my mind. And when we talk about what we do is our intent in so much of this is to help guys get out of their head. So it's not a lot of just talking theory and all of those things, but to really experience what's going on for us on a very kind of somatic level, but also just even a relational level and a personal level to better connect with ourselves, body, our spirit, all those parts of ourselves. So many activities are experiential in nature that we really want to be feeling and doing rather than just talking.
Love it. Love it. Yeah, I think one of the things that's really apparent for me in this as a facilitator and a co-creator here with and Chris, with the hundreds of hours that of experience and our intentionality here that has gone into this is it's really beautiful to hear from men how they were unaware of the activities that were constructed because they were so aware of their experience. And for me, this work really truly is about there is for me a very deep spiritual sense of wanting to create an environment where men can really truly experience themselves in a new way while learning how to test those boundaries of relational boundaries of connection and disconnection that we really fundamentally cannot get outside in the default life and relationships that we're in. And the whole weekend is an arc, a beautiful arc where when we leave that weekend, we are leaving having really seen ourselves in a new way. We have been through this incredible dance with a group of other human beings, and we really, truly then out of it back into our lives and relationships. We get to see ourselves in a different way and see what we're capable of. And to me, that is all about intention, right? From the very beginning of arriving to agreement setting, to moving into the space. And the final thing I'll say is that the circle is the safest shape for the human nervous system. One of the best ways that I like to describe this to guys on calls is I'll say like, hey, I'm not going to tell you everything we're going to do there, but everything we do is accessible, right? So you can participate in this if you are obese or overweight, or you have a lower back issue, or you're in a wheelchair, all the way up until you are a Navy SEAL, right? Like, we want guys to be able to participate in this because that's a part of being a man. Like, this isn't just about carrying heavy rocks or participating in traditionally acceptable ways of being a man. And that circle is the safest shape. And so when we arrive, we really go through this whole process of learning to be in the circle and to come into our bodies and to appreciate taking care of the man in front of us, right? And looking through that man into the woods behind him, and then recognizing that when I stand in front of this man and my nervous system is scanning the environment behind him, he's actually able to down regulate and to open in a way that maybe he's never been able to before, because he has to protect himself in every other situation of his life, right? And so then we just deepen that throughout the weekend and then close it, right? And so what kind number 7, what happens afterward? It's a great segue. I'm going to leave this one over to Chris because there is a lot of care and attention put into this container. And I think you perfectly primed us to talk about that, Chris.
Yeah. The one last thing I want to add. Ooh, I don't know what that was. Loud ding on my side. Sorry. One of the things I wanted to add just on the last two is we also, at any point, if a man does not want to participate in something, we will strongly encourage and support. But if you say no, that's we respect that.
Yep. Thank you for adding that.
There's always an opt-out. Afterwards, it's always our intention that we have kind of a re-entry process that, we really believe that the weekend can be transformational. And when we change and the systems around us don't change, that can be really kind of tough. And so we will always schedule a follow-up call a few weeks after the retreat just to check in, to reorient. And then we offer connection into the community. That there's a group of guys who've been through similar experiences and doing the work and know a bit of kind of what this work looks like, and getting connected with other guys, whether that's locally or online in the community, is a really important part. And so we have groups, and there's all sorts of things that Chris can talk more about. But after the retreat, we really encourage you to follow up with another man you connected with, and also join us in the retreat follow-up call.
Yeah. I'll say very little more after that, but it's the relational intimacy that's created at retreat is incredibly powerful, and returning back to our life and relationships as they are can be almost like a rewounding, a realization of, wow, this is how much different my life is as it is outside of the retreat. And the delta between those two things can be dissatisfaction or insecurity or doubt and fear. And so it's very, very important that we check back in together after we return home to realize, to bring that felt sense of what was possible at the retreat back home with us. And then that's what the Unshakable Man community is all about. That's why this community has grown, is that from there, men choose to continue on and to create a group. And that's why we run the Unshakable Man program, which is a seasonal program of transformational change, where we meet together in groups for 3 to 6 months. And we learn to continue and to bring these practices back home into our life as it is. And so I look at this as a beautiful engine of transformational change and self-confidence building skills. And it's really a whole system that's there to support your growth and transformation. Chris or Londell or Mike, do you guys want to share maybe just some insight into like what happened after the retreat from your perspective?
Yep. So for me, being a part of the Unshakable Man community was huge for my transformation out of the retreat back into my day-to-day life, because like both of the Chris's have said, it can be shocking, can literally be shocking to be thrust back into your day-to-day life after such a transformational shift. And so by being a part of the community, that has given me like-minded men that, are on their own journey, but we're on that journey together. And so being able to share the stuff that comes up in the day-to-day and how that relates to what we learned in the retreat, it's just a leveling kind of sensation. So it's been very helpful for me.
me, after leaving, um, I felt that I had created relationships and that I had been vulnerable to men in a way that I had not before. And that allowed me to really express myself more and more effectively. I will also say that it deepened relationships with individuals I already knew. And I think it's important that it was made clear that we are not the same man who entered. And that as we leave to go back to our homes, we may have the same situations that appear, and because of these practices, we may respond to them very differently. And I think it was cute to say, don't make any huge life decisions, because you're not. So it's like being. No, I don't want to say that. It's. I guess it's a renewal to a very large degree of understanding who I am, how I exist, how I appear to others, and then the continual check-in with other men to ground that. Because here's an example. When I was dropped off at the airport, there were several incidents that really annoyed the crap out of me, and I was fit to be tied, and I let the men know that I was traveling with, can you believe that this just happened? And this is what I feel like doing. And even though it was all done through text message, I got a response, but I can't remember the exact verbiage, but it was basically, we hear you, we see you, and really helped to just calm my whatever, my anxiety, my on edgeness, if that's a word. Yeah, because I was all riled up to, probably end up in an airport jail somewhere. And, but it was nice to have that immediate connection, with men who I had been through this experience with and knew how raw I was, and to really kind of help, tamper the flame.
I'm laughing because I remember that text.
Yes.
I'm like, I can only imagine what could have gotten you into the airport jail. But let's leave it there, right? Learning how to be with whatever is happening in our experience of our life, to open to be with it. All right, gentlemen. So the last three questions, I think we can group these all together. What are the accommodations like? How old are the guys who attend? And will I be accepted by the guys? I'm going to say that the accommodations are beautiful. It is a beautiful property for doing this deep transformational work. I feel deeply spiritually connected to the land that is there, and thankful for having the opportunity to put on these retreats there. I consider this to be our home location. And it is in glamping tents with an amazing barn and yurt and lake. And the food is just absolutely amazing, prepared by my amazing fiance, Anna, who brings all of her love into that process. And then how old are the guys who attend? A spectrum from 20 in their early 20s. We have had men who are 16 to 18, 19, 20, who are interested in attending with a loved one or with a buddy who they're matched with by Chris and I. all the way up until 82, I think, is the oldest man that's reached out that said that he's interested in the next retreat. And so it's that spectrum. And will I be accepted by the guys? I'm gonna let you guys answer that question.
%. I typically run, because of who I am and how I identify, I typically assume that any man will, most men will reject me or feel very uncomfortable around me. And I was able to get over that. Actually, I was able to address it head on the first full day, and really kind of see my part in that. So, and from that point on, really, I had, I could be my full self and be present.
Londell, I love how you said I was able to address that. Maybe Chris can speak to that a little bit, like your perspective on addressing that, because that is, I feel tight about saying you will be accepted by all the guys that are there. There's a much more nuanced way to answer that question that I think is the depth of what's happening in these spaces. But I think I'll lead that for Chris or Mike to allude to. Mike, why don't you give your perspective so Chris can go last?
Yeah, sure. Again, I kind of said at the very beginning of this that the acceptance. I mean, you can look at me. I'm on the older side of the spectrum of this whole thing.
How old are you, Mike?
I am 58 years young, and
thank you for sharing.
Yeah, you bet. And I mean, there were guys that are way younger than I am, and we totally jive. And I mean, bottom line, I don't understand some of the stuff that that the younger generation understands, and so being with them and experiencing through their experience really helps me to connect with that. I'm an old white straight guy, right? But there's members of the and I always get this wrong,
LGBTQ community.
Thank you. I can never keep that straight.
The GBTQ community for this context.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So again, a different perspective. And it's so cool for a guy like me to embrace that and to to learn and I'll never understand the experience, but for those men to share their experiences with me so that I can at least have an inkling of what they go through is just it's an amazing growth experience for me. So over to you, Dr. Spromberg.
Yeah, Lundell said it great. Like, the quick answer is yeah, we will be. Also, to like every guy there is also for their own experience as well too. And so understanding that we let guys have their own intention in the weekend and get what they need. And so sometimes that's not always making connections with every single man who's there. But will you be accepted? Yes, you have a spot at the table. And so grab a plate and scoot up because we're passing to the left. That's what my family always did. Can go right, apparently. But yes, every man has a spot at the table. And if you're feeling left out and not connecting, it's our intention that we're available. Chris and I are available, and if you want to address it, that we're available, and that if that's present for us, that's what the weekend is for, is to bring up, like Londell said, to bring up where you're at in that experience, and that hopefully we can hold it with you. And so we're going to encourage just that, to show up, to belly up to the table and grab a plate, no matter what's present for us.
Yeah. And we match guys with a buddy when they get there. And so I think that there's a process that we've discovered through doing these retreats over and over again, that for some men, the reason why I felt tight about saying just, yeah, you're going to be blanketly accepted, is that for many men, we have our own traumatic experiences around being in groups of men. And so we have protective parts that separate us and that can that have a whole story in our head about being disconnected or pushed out of being in a group. And I think what's very important about creating these spaces is that we have the programming and the structure in place to be able to create a container where a man can really see that that's happening for him, and that we hold that boundary, like we stand right on that threshold with that man, and so that until he can feel like, okay, I'm allowed to be here, right? Like this is my experience and I'm at choice, right? And I think that's the realness of this, right? That's the realization, like what's happened to me in the past, I can take care of that, right? I can take care of that place inside. And I call that awakening your inner unshakable man. And that's the intention here, right? Is to really find your inner unshakable man and to come out of this experience stronger, really being able to see your life and the vision for your life and relationships in an incredibly new way, and to feel connected with a small group of men who can support you in that, and then to get to choose to be a part of that circle moving forward, right? And that's how this work progressively just grows and continues on. So gentlemen, thank you, like Chris, thank you so much for taking time out of your day off to be here.
Pleasure.
Thank you. Mike, thank you so much. Londell had to jump off for a meeting. If you're listening to this in the future, please reach out to us, sign up for the retreat. If you're feeling anticipation, that means you should probably be here. Right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Awesome,
Yep.
guys. Have a great night. Bye.
Good to see you,
Thanks,
Mike.
guys. See you guys.